McLuhanMashUp number 2 with Clinton, Gerry.
Is on.
Whoa,
Start now.
something. Restart there?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me do this again. Oops, now I lost us. Okay. All right, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to start again. 5, 3, 2, 1. Hello, welcome to Marshall McLuhan Mashup number 2. It's November 6, 2020 with Clinton, Gerry, and Jay. I dedicate this session to my wife, Susie Williams, who opened for Manhattan Transfer 44 years ago at Carnegie Hall. So this recalls a great joke. The person's walking down the street in New York City, and someone walks up to them and says, "How do I get to Carnegie Hall?" And they say, "Practice." So we know it's a double meaning joke. It could mean they want directions on how to actually walk there, but indeed they used a different verb, which was practice. I was amazed listening to Marshall McLuhan last night from Fordham, James Joyce in television, July 28, 1966, and he said, "I don't pretend to understand them," studying these hidden psychic effects of human invention. So he always claimed he was a student and trying to learn, and I guess indeed we are students and we're trying to learn and suss this out. So my first question to you gentlemen is, can we learn? We'll start with Clinton.
Yes, we're always learning. Even when we don't know we're learning.
What was the second part?
Even when we don't know we're learning.
That's good. Jay, anything, can we learn?
Born to learn. That's all we do from birth on is learning.
Right. And so Marshall said we become environments. So we should talk about this word environment. It is an amazing word that came out in the 1600s in meaning being environed. It's a verb. It means to circle or encompass. It wasn't until 1956 where environment was applied to ecology, meaning save the earth, be good to Mother Nature. So how do you, Jay, we'll start with you. How do you interpret this aspiration of McLuhan, or maybe it's not an aspiration, it's a symptom or an effect? We become environments. What does that mean?
Well, the we become part, I suppose, would mean sort of we become, well, just by being a part of all of it, we become the environment, that which surrounds us. My favorite analogy is the fish in water, whether they're aware they're in water or not. That's the environment, the thing that contains them, the thing within which they're existing. So we become the environment. I mean, we are the environment in the sense that if like David Bohm it says, we might be like the roses woven onto the giant rug. You might feel like you're your own rose, but if you could step back, you'd be a part of this larger rug. So in that sense,
sorry, I cut you off. Great analogy. But Jay, just to stay on that for a second, the common person would go, no, I'm a person and that's, or, I'm a fish and that's water. I'm different. I mean, it sounds a little too metaphorical in high aspiration that we become the environment. So you gave a good analogy with the rose, but you want to go deeper.
When you walk into a party where you don't know anybody, you are the individual in the party who doesn't know anybody. That's the environment. That's what you are. You've become the individual at the party who doesn't know anybody. Then you start to shake hands, or maybe you see someone you recognize from a previous time, and now you're no longer that environment. Now you're the individual with an associate at the party. That's become the new environment. You are the environment as you move through it, as you change and it changes. Is that any better?
Really good. Yeah, that was super cool. Okay, Clinton, we become environment. How's that suss out for you?
Yeah, I like that roses analogy. You can think of the whole rest of the rug is within the environment, surrounded by all the roses. I mean, when you look at a collective of people, the environment is everything. We are in the environment that the rest of the planet exists in. We kind of got it surrounded in as much as it surrounds us, if you want to flip it that way. I think of it as how we extend ourselves. We create so much of our artificial world of the city and of everything we do, which has brought us so far out of nature. It is an extension of us, McLuhan would say. So it is us, and we use it. It extends, our bodies, our senses. Every time we make use of the larger infrastructure, if you think of it as an extension of us, then there's something human about every level of it, every layer of it. It all has an innovator, an inventor, a creator, the craftspeople who built your house, etc., etc.
That was good. Now, this word encompass. So, environment comes from environ, and then encompass, which encompass comes from the word circle. So then I found, they almost said in etymology online that it's like center without margin, which is a phrase that Marshall loved to say, which I think is amazing. It's sort of like how sound is forever going out, and you can't contain it in. Whereas you can close your eyes and not see something. You can put your fingers over your ear lids, but the sound still kind of leaks through. So it's sort of like sound is a good example of a center without a margin. And what in the environment does, it encircles us. But then the word circle came from circus, or that's what etymology says, which is a lively uproar, chaotic hubbub. 1869. I mean, environments are circuses, right? We're caught up in this worldwide circus of the global village becoming the global theater. And here's the next word. We'll start with you, Clinton, is pervasive power. That these environments have pervasive power. So what is, I can tell you where the word pervasive is coming from first etymologically, but maybe you just go, what did Marshall mean, or what do you think? Why are environments pervasive?
They spread.
Yeah.
They spread, and they don't go away once they crop up. They sort of become part of the landscape. I mean, I'm not sure if that's redundant to say. We shape our environments, but they're not all pop-up tents that we then assemble back into a bag and take home with us, leaving the forest pristine the way we left it. We definitely leave a mark.
Oh, that was good, because that's the great McLuhan joke where the Indian guide is with the traveler. He's hired the Indian guide, and they're lost in the woods. And he said, we're lost. And the Indian guy goes, no, teepee is lost. The tent is lost. So, Jay, what's your take on pervasive power? How is that environment pervasive? I mean, you can...
Pervasive to me evokes there's no opting out. It's everywhere. You're surrounded. And even if you choose, we've talked about this before as sort of, I mean, we could use any example we want, sort of, why not use the smartphone? I could say, well, I don't have a smartphone, so I'm not a part of the smartphone revolution or whatever's going on with smartphones. But that's not true. The smartphone environment is here, like it or not, and it's pervasive, as you say. And whether I have a smartphone or not, that's the environment that I am living through or existing in.
Right. That was good. I want to go more in pervasive, but since you evoked the idea of fasting, so Marshall called for a media fast. So using that as an example, we can't escape it was sort of the word I got a hint from both of you. It's pervasive, meaning you can't escape it. I don't have a cell phone, but I live in a cell phone world. My wife has a cell phone. I can use hers anytime I want. And people go, oh, it's so cool you don't have a cell phone. I goes, well, it doesn't mean much, but I just don't have it on my body. But is it possible, Clinton, to have a media fast like Marshall called for? I mean, would it work? Can you do without something?
Possible. I don't think it's the only way to get out of the trap, though. You can have a media fast. It's like every Saturday, what's it called, a Shabbat or something, right? You can unplug for a while, but I don't think that's effective as actually understanding the media to the point where you can see through it. It takes intense focus and analysis and learning how to understand the media for what it is when you're looking at it, to go straight through to the bottom of it, to the ground of it, by studying it, by making it yourself, by learning the language, learning how the content from the medium, etc. I think that's the other approach to just unplugging. I mean, the fast just lets you stay in your anti-environment for a while and recollect so that you can keep your detachment from the environment that you're otherwise always so involved in that you can't quite discern its lineaments. But
yeah, it sounds like you have high aspirations. Yeah, Clinton, you have high aspirations. But Jay, you have kids and you have two sons, and you have to feel as a father, you can't just say, here's your cell phones, go use them as much as you want. Can a media fast work, in regards to raising children and or just yourself, your own use?
I mean, I think you need to clarify work for what.
Yeah.
Every environment is services and disservices, right?
Yeah.
So I try to limit my intake of news personally as much as possible. But that's going to mean that sometimes I don't know what's going on. How does that affect me? It does affect me, positively or negatively. Anyone can decide to paint that however they want. But a media fast is definitely possible, and whether it benefits you or not might depend on your institution. I mean, your makeup. What you need. If you're one of these who's addicted to gaming, then maybe it's nice to take a media fast, But if you're not really suffering, or like Clinton said, if you're able to suss out some of these hidden psychic effects or recognize the way that, the particular like agendas and sub-agendas, the way that the way these institutions exist to manipulate or affect an emotional response, then you might be less hindered by it. And I would say, speaking from a McLuhan point of view, that's what he was all about, was by seeing these hidden psychic effects, it can reduce the ambient low-level baseline anxiety that we're all sort of carrying around with us.
Yeah, that really anticipated one question. Actually, two questions that came up. Can one get the big picture view better? In essence, aren't we all, wandering through the pervasive power of the environments our inventions create? And everyone is, whether, we've studied McLuhan and we can see through media literacy that this is what it's doing to us. So we have a better big picture view. And then the next guy goes, oh no, I'm caught up in it and I'm believing these news items that might not be, investigated properly. So he's the one who said, no point of view, but indeed we're all three sort of saying, well, we can get a big picture view better by studying the hidden psychic effects. So Jay, what do you think? Can we?
I do. I believe that. Yeah. I think that, by some form of detaching from, look, you got, like I said earlier, to use the fish thing, it's like to know the water you're in is going to help you navigate the water more effectively than just being in it. I think if there's not some kernel of truth to that, then what are we even doing here? We ought to be either, I don't know, seeking pleasure or seeking self-denial or seeking enlightenment, something, besides just.
But Jay, that's the very issue. So Marshall was being contradictory in a way, saying, don't have a point of view, but in this regard, you can get a big picture view better. That's a point of view. How do you suss that out?
Right. That sounds contradictory. So I don't know if he was saying you'll have a better point of view. I think he was saying it'll be easier to be at peace with what is, or reality as it is, which is what most wise people are after, throughout the ages.
Yeah.
I think of ataraxia a lot when I'm doing this stuff with you guys, which was this Greek term that came out of the skeptics and the original cynics, and it was basically like you get a certain peace of mind by accepting things as they are, by seeing them clearly and with dispassion. That doesn't mean your life has to be without passion, but you're not getting as carried away with the ups and downs. And I've been keying in on that a lot lately. To me, that's one of the prime benefits of analyzing the environments the way we do. And the other thing that I think is amazing, we were talking about McLuhan the other day, was Gerry, what's this quote where he said it was about there was a social element to it as well.
Yeah, I'm going to read that quote. I'll find it in a second. Yeah.
Okay, but sometimes I think just getting into a space, whether it's a Zoom or a room, and speaking with people about the ways that they see they're experiencing their environment, that has the effect of it too. That has a calming effect too. And I've always joked that your get-togethers were really just an excuse to just share eye contact and a chuckle here or there. That's the real benefit.
That's it.
Yeah, everything else is just a delivery device for eye contact and an occasional chuckle.
Yeah, it's like when I asked Penny a question, she goes, "Oh dear." I goes, "That's the right answer," because she's like, well, what does "oh dear" mean? It's like, well, my mind's working. But before I give that quote, which was really good recall, Jay, Clinton, can you address that? Is Marshall being contradictory by saying, well, you can get the big picture better? I say, no, have suspended judgment. But in this case, I'm making a value judgment. You can get the big picture better if you develop media literacy skills.
I think it's a little more complicated. There are a point of view specifically means like a perspective painting. You're staring at the painting and you have one point of view, like a window onto this scene, right? You've got your single point of view means that other objects are further away and squished on the canvas and all fit together into your framing of a situation, compared to a cubist painting, something Picasso paints, which has no point of view because it's smeared, it's circulated, you see all sides of everything, right, etc., etc., all this modern art sort of allegory. I think when he says I have no point of view, what he's saying is I'm not going to agree with any one side in this room against the other side, and there is a sort of he's above it all. And I wouldn't say that well, it's definitely not humble, but it's also, not overt. He definitely, as a guy who always carry himself with, 6 cards up his sleeve to, say the smartest thing in the room and act kind of like this guru level above everyone else in a sort of, it's not, that's not the same as having a point of view, right? He's living in the present, and everyone with a point of view is in the past because they fail to see the environment because they're too busy trying to listen directly to the old-fashioned arguments that everyone else is saying and live in the, dialectic of coming up with a counter argument inside of a conversation, inside of the content of the environment, right? They're not in touch with the environment itself. I think that's more where I would try to tuss out the differences there between what I don't see as a contradiction.
That was good. So you're saying this word tuss, Tuss?
I think that's a word. Like, I'm trying to pull out and
Yeah.
untie this knot. I don't think there's really a knot here or a contradiction. I'm trying to pull the threads out because him having a view of the total surround environment that everyone else is inside of.
Yeah.
It's not the same as each person in the room having a different point of view than the other person, right?
Yeah. Very good. So the line that Jay wanted me to say was from McLuhan. He said, "My object is to show community in action rather than prove anything." It's an amazing, simple line. That was good, Jay, that you remembered that. That's in his letter to his mom in 52, where he said The Mechanical Bride is a new form of science fiction with ads and comics as characters. Amazing. Letters to McLuhan is an amazing book. But let's go, because both of you said point of view. We brought up that. Are we hardwired for point of view and aesthetic preferences? Is it innate or invented point of view? Clinton, we'll start with you.
Suppose I'd have to say invented.
Jay.
I think this is complicated, but I think I'd lean towards invented. I do think that it seems that life appreciates organizing around a system that knows how to orient itself. That's not all life, but I know from a lot of, like, from some of the stuff about artificial intelligence, it's like you do need the object needs to have some centering thing that allows it to is it move left or is it move right? These things you have to have a point of reference in order to have north, south, east, west. And
yeah,
so that part might be innate in this particular organism.
Yeah, because it's like I threw in aesthetic too. Or do we have aesthetic and preference because it's innate in us, or we invented it? So I had a good example watching the new documentary on Hunter S. Thompson the other day, Freak Power, from the ballot to the bomb, and I've always known that Hunter is important, but aesthetically I didn't like him being a crazed, druggy, gun-toting nut. But this film shows that before he was that, he was very articulate, and he ran for sheriff of Aspen and created amazing 90-minute doc on what he did. So my aesthetic actually changed. I have a different aesthetic and point of view of Hunter now because I was blessed to spend 90 minutes with 2 documentary filmmakers who did a good job telling the story. So that leads me to his typing out The Great Gatsby because he wanted to learn how to write. So he just did this thing, sort of what Jay talked about. He didn't try to rewrite it. He just said, I'm going to type it out to go through the motions and then maybe it'll help me. So the basic question is, why do we recreate things? So Clinton, we'll start with you. Why do we have to create or recreate anything?
Oh, because we're all born fresh and have to learn to come into eventually hoping to come close to, reaching the competence or the mastery or the ability or the, the capacity to take on responsibility that all the adults were carrying when we were kids. And then, it's a generational thing, right? We have to recreate stuff for that reason, at least. Just the task of catching up to how good humanity has proven to be in the past takes a whole bunch of sandbox, Piagetian, whatever way you want to look at it, learning.
Wait, you just dropped a highbrow word. Piagetian means what?
Oh, he was a psychologist who looked at how children develop, right? We have to develop the way children have to grow up, right? That's what I'm saying.
Well, I like that.
Just want to make sure we still got Jay here. He seems to be frozen up on my screen.
Oh no,
he's there.
Oh,
okay.
You're back. Oh,
yeah. We'll jump in and out, but remember, any technical difficulties is like recalling or presaging McLuhan's. It's like reading every other page of a book. If you miss a word because it freezes, it will come back, or it forces the viewer to fill in the missing. But that was good, and we'll stay on that for a second, because I think all artists try to get in touch with their children impulses, the sense of just creating for the sake of creating, because it's probably driven inside them to just sit down and start drawing. And I saw Robert Zemeckis talking yesterday about making films, and he said, never talk down to children. And I thought that was wise advice. But how would you handle that, Jay? Why do we have to create or recreate things?
I love that Clinton brought up Piaget, because I think there's a lot of he covers a lot of this stuff. There's a nice overlap between Piaget and McLuhan, and so even taking it back one step earlier, there is evidence to suggest that neonatal, not just humans but even primates, do prefer seeing a face versus seeing the nothing. So there does seem to be some kind of aesthetic hardwired. Although I would say very shortly after it becomes invented, the kinds of things we prefer to see and don't, and that would be social conditioning, political, religious conditioning. All of that starts to come into play really early. So then taking it after, why do we recreate? I think recreating comes out of a necessity to attempt to control disorder, or to master chaos.
Yeah, that's funny, because I was trying to find the line. One of the things that we're fortunate having you, Jay, is that you've spent 26 years being an actor, right?
Right.
And that's pretty impressive. And so, that's like, why do you have to recreate life by being an actor, reading a screenplay or a script and recreating life? Why don't we just live it? So I don't know where my act word was for McLuhan, but we'll go to that, the necessity of having evil in the world, whether we want to have evil, or evil's a force, or there's evil people, or how did this word evil even come about? Because often when I ask people, is evil something that occupies people as a vehicle, or are there actually evil people? And most people say we're all capable of evil. And Paul Krasner, the great political comedian, learned from Christian Murdy is, why is there evil in the world? And he said, to thicken the plot. So this is sort of what you said, Jay. We're not consciously creating chaos, but we're seeking it out, because we feel too comfortable when everything is acting non-chaotic, or
No, on the contrary, I think the organism is like the default mode is to seek stasis and comfort and reliability. And, I think you maybe misheard me because what I was saying is it's an attempt to wrangle chaos. That's the art of recreating, is taking the unknown and approaching it and then reapproaching in order that we make it known and more than known, renown.
That's good. So, Clinton, you said you think
from the acting point of view, bad guys don't think they're bad guys. They don't think they're evil. There may be some awareness, but a lot of guys you would say are evil do not think they are evil. And evil, and you want to take it, even more actory. That's from Hamlet. Shakespeare says, not paraphrasing, nothing such as good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
Whoa, that's heavy. So suss that out. What does that mean, Jay?
It's that the human projects or paints these feelings or emotions or these charged words like good and evil upon what is occurring. They're just like everything is a label and is packed into a category to make managing this absolute nonsense all around us more approachable, more livable. It's all these shortcuts we've made, but to think that evil is not one of those shortcuts is to be fooling yourself. And this gets back into the value judgment thing too. That value judgments create smog in the environment, right?
Yeah, smog. Wow. But Jay, what you evoked was good because it goes back to that thing that environments are circular. They encompass us. It could mean circus. So what we're living in is a lively uproar of chaotic hubbub. And we're trying to deal with it. So, Clinton, to get you in this little
to it too, but from our POV or whatever, it's frightening because we have soft bellies.
Wow.
We don't have big claws,
Yeah. So get Clinton involved in what Jay just said by saying McLuhan updated Global Village to Global Theater when Sputnik went up and said, hey, we're all actors in the global theater. So why do we have to act? Oh, here's the line. Part of ourselves acting as new environments. Oh my God. I knew that acting word would pop up. So talk about this a little, Clinton. What does that evoke for you? This idea of acting, and part of ourselves are acting as the new environments.
Right. To perceive the real environment would be, in an ideal sense, I think, to look at a film screen and see, light and film grain, and see a whole bunch of people sitting next to you who think they're staring at human faces, and actors who think that they're staring at, some epic scene. They think they see monsters and wizards fighting. They think they see that, but in fact, they're looking at actors who are running around on a film script 8 months ago when this thing was being filmed, right? All right, to take apart and try to escape the illusion or the captivating elements of the content, and judge the lighting and the direction and all that stuff. For instance, for film, as one example, right? When you perceive the environment, you see everyone else around you participating in the content of the environment, and you're trying to see the environment. And to get to this point of value judgments, when you're still trying to establish a sense of what's really going on around you, like the relation of your embodied self to the environment around you, where I'm actually sitting all up by myself in my bedroom right now, pretending I'm talking to two other, fellas who are not actually here right now, right? We're all talking
we're here,
to one another.
We're here.
In an illusory content. You're not there at all. I can't even flick you. Right? Right? And I mean, we're born into the world first seeing all of the illusions because they're the most salient. As you said, neonatally, we want to see people's faces. We're going to see faces in the clouds. We're going to see faces in, the pattern of lights on the wall from, the sun reflecting, right? We see faces everywhere. And then when it comes to something like Zoom, where it's actually technically now utilized the illusion into something which is real. We are actually talking to another, of course, right? In the end. But I think the idea about, when we got to the questions about like making value judgments or what's evil and whatnot, I feel like for the sake of seeing what's really going on, you have to suspend your judgment and just try to see what's going on. That doesn't mean that eventually, when you finally feel comfortable or secure in at least your sense of what reality is, you can't now decide whether or not your participation in that is for something and against something else, and what is and what's not. It's not like an injunction to absolute moral relativity, this whole, forestalling value judgments. It's a way, to get your grip and to try and just see the underlying ground beneath events, so that you don't just fall for someone else's backward thinking explanation or use some naive category as to what's, like you said, we want to categorize everything, right, as to what's evil or what's good, or all these really difficult decisions that people are quick to make. Does tie back to your value, the global theater you were saying. How does this tie to the global theater?
Well, that we're acting in the global theater, that once Sputnik went up, we all became actors in the global theater. So we're sort of gone into this thing about acting.
Sure. Well, everyone was beginning to, copy and mimic movie stars by the 40s and 50s, and then television cameras and high-8 cheap film, starts creating home movies, and you can go, like buy some black and white 8mm film and start making movies at home in the 60s and 70s, right? People begin understanding that performance isn't just for the stage anymore, because there could always be a camera pointed on you for posterity, right? When you begin living for mediated posterity, it adds an element of an element of the dramatic and the performative to the aspect of just basic being.
Let's hold there, because that was good. I want to get back to this. Jay, the seeing the faces in the cloud, Clinton, were great, because my parents actually raised me to go, well, do you see that bunny face, that rabbit face in the clouds there? And I said, who needs an art museum? You can just look up in the sky and see paintings of, rabbits in the clouds if you use your imagination. But Jay knows this.
Sorry, I just want to say too, but what's the first thing people do when they do that? Most people say, do you see it?
Yeah, very good. They ask a question.
There has to be this dual seeing of it for it to exist for most.
Yeah, that's same with telling your dream to someone. I had a dream last night. The dream doesn't exist unless you try to articulate it in words, which is ridiculous. But Jay, tell us this great Buddhist thing about pointing at the moon in the finger, and I brought it up the other day, and you knew how to articulate.
Specifically Buddhist. I don't know if it's specifically
right,
Buddhist.
but it's from Eastern origin.
It's the Eastern thing of don't mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon. So this was like all the texts are saying this is the way, or the teachers are saying this is the way, and everyone's focusing here. But this is what everyone's trying to get at.
Right.
This is something they tell newbies, I suppose. Just be careful.
Yeah, but it was good that, because Clinton was saying it in essence what great experimental filmmakers have said too. There's two things. You're looking at a white screen or a moving image computer screen, or you're looking at the content that's on that white screen. So, Jay,
taking it even further, Eric McLuhan was doing all this stuff about projecting through the screen or projecting onto the screen, and even the simple adjustments like that create a huge impact on the viewer of the said screen. And then lastly, I want to add that it might be worth looking into that McLuhan was a few centuries behind the Arabs in terms of Sputnik, because the words zenith, azimuth, and nadir enter the English language around 13 or 1400, and these signify that there was a culture on this planet that saw a celestial outsideness that they could refer back to themselves. So it didn't require Sputnik for us to be a global theater. Some people on this planet knew centuries before that, and actually we're segmenting it too. That's what we get our zodiac from there too. Even though it's Greek items in the zodiac, Greek beasts or whatever, the segmentation of that celestial thing was occurring long before Sputnik.
Really good, Jay, because we know by studying Marshall, it's been charted out. Oh, he got Medium's message from Ashley Montague. He got Global Village from Wyndham Lewis. And, it is a beautiful thing that you just taught us about the Arabs and the Sputnik idea. And I wanted to ask you, Jay, because this line, part of ourselves acting as a new environment, just really stood out, because it's McLuhan talking about this word acting. And is our selves consciously acting as new environments? You're an actor. You've studied it. You do it. And then, me and Clinton aren't actors, but
no, you're the star of your movie, and I think that might be what he's talking about.
Say it again.
I think he might be talking about the fact that you're the star of your movie, Gerry.
You mean my movie specifically, or you mean everybody's has their own movie?
The star of their movie. When you're moving through traffic, it's you stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
But everyone else in that traffic is stuck too. One's got to get to the hospital. One's late on their taxes. One's this. One's that. And their movie is playing in for them too. It's very hard to climb out of that.
Right.
That is what Eastern, and even Christian mysticism was about.
Yeah. And that's good, but it's also, Clinton and I aren't aspiring or trying to be in the movie, in the acting business, and you're in the acting business. So I'm just saying that the funny thing is studying the word act in etymology came 15th century, to set in motion, drive forward, to perform, draw out, exert energy, and exert force. It is amazing what that verb means, act. Yeah. So I'm just asking you if you can differentiate between, I understood your parallel though, that was well put, but if you can differentiate just in your knowledge of Marshall saying we're all actors in the global theater now, you sort of explained that, but what's the difference between your knowledge and study of acting and the other person's?
Mine is, mine is less natural. No.
Wow, that's almost like yours is when you get your Academy Award, Jay, you're going to say, no, his is more natural because you did it better. But it's like sort of a weird
from an aesthetic point of view, which again has come down to me, has been handed down to me. I didn't have complete say in adopting this aesthetic, but I am anti-naturalism. I don't think it's the most creative choice you can make, but it does permeate and pervade our current media environment, specifically with film and television. This move since Brando and Dean and those lovely guys towards a more naturalistic style of acting. I'll just do it the way I would do it. I find that insipid and not very creative at all. But that does seem to be the de rigueur from then until now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I. So you might see me doing my approach and say, "Gosh, he's pushing it. It's forced. It's what an outlandish choice he made there." And it might actually appear more false than someone posing for their Instagram story on a towel.
Right. Go ahead. Clint, did you want to add something or move on?
No, I like that that ambiguity as to whether being unnatural means being able to slip on or roll more fully and lose yourself, or whether it means being your natural self and not changing much. That's an interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when we do their Zooms, and I mean, this session, these McLuhan mashups are all about the medium of Zoom. And it goes back to, I believe they're better than being live. I'm sorry to say, because there's constant eye contact forced on us. Our eyes aren't wandering in a room. Most of us stay focused with eyes on and we're in our boxes, and our eyes aren't wandering the room that we're in, so much. And so McLuhan said these environments are invisible, that this is part of the thing, that we can look to the artists, the actors, the painters, the writers to reveal the hidden psychic effects, but we usually ignore them. It's a big thing in McLuhan. Why do humans ignore these? And then people always go, well, because they're afraid or whatever. I've had that fear thing come up so often. They're afraid of seeing the hidden psychic effects. But I want to just stay on this environments being invisible, because the word invisible is 14th century, incapable of being seen. And then, it took The Invisible Man, 1897, H.G. Wells. So what does Marshall mean when he says the environments are invisible? Because they're not invisible. You go into the party, the analogy Jay gave earlier, you can see that you're in the party, so, it's again this sensual thing. The word that McLuhan chose is invisible. So basically the question is what is he really meaning by saying environments are invisible? Because we can see them, but we can ignore them, but we still can see them. Go ahead, Clint.
They're insalient.
What's that word mean?
When something is salient, it's like candy to your senses. It's the blinky shiny thing that you go, oh, what's that? Salience.
Yeah.
It's what your senses reveal to you as relevant. You become conscious of what's salient to you. So environments are insalient when we're habituated to them.
That's a good word, habituated. Yeah.
All of our habits are focused on the thing we actually have to pay attention to pay attention to it. And I know how to walk. When I was an infant, I couldn't walk. I had to pay close attention to taking every step and not falling over. Right? But I am my own walking is invisible to me unless I'm trudging through 3 feet of snow or something else like this, right?
Jay, what's that word mean to you when he says environments are invisible?
That they're affecting us on a less than conscious level.
There you go.
I really appreciate what Clinton said. I think that's absolutely correct. Attention usually is attracted to the most magnetic, or the stuff with the biggest gravity, and it does tend to be those things. I also think too, most people when they walk into that party aren't thinking that this is creating an environment. They're feeling a sensation that they then label anxiety, or that's maybe the more aware of them, or they may just label it as thirsty and go grab an alcoholic beverage as soon as possible. It's like there is not a tremendous amount of environmental awareness, and that's what he's talking about when it comes to invisibility. Also, sensations aren't seen, right? They're created in the organism. They're felt maybe, but you don't see anxiety. You might think you see it in others, and you may or may not be correct, but the environment as it affects you is creating sensations in the organism that are then labeled. And again, we use these labels that we've been conditioned to label them with.
That's good.
Act on that, yeah.
Yeah, that's good because it's also the word invisible means incapable of being seen, and seen means perceptible. So that's percept, intuition, feeling. So
Well, I would say you do perceive sensations when you walk into that party alone. You know, you do,
yeah,
something occurs in your being. Yeah.
yeah. Because there's an Igor Stravinsky quote I forgot to bring up earlier, and I'd love to get your reaction. Jay, we'll start with you. He says, most people don't know what they like what they know. So that's like create the disease and offer the cure. Is that really bring true to you that the people don't know? Because this again is like if you give kids McDonald's, you know, Happy Meals from day one, and you go up to a kid, what's your favorite meal? What's your favorite dinner? What's your favorite food? They'll go Happy Meals because that's what they know. And they might not go, well, I love it when my mom makes me a homemade meal. So this idea, how do you suss out this idea is most people don't know what they like what they know.
I mean,
Jay.
Statistically, I hear things like 90% of iTunes downloads are 10 people or something like this. You know, like it does seem like there's an incredible cultural homogeneity occurring. So, you know, the people I surround myself with, you lovely gentlemen, I think you guys probably do lean into the unknown more and seek pleasure from things that you don't know so well, and that you are actively exploring your environment. But the evidence on paper that I see is that there's a tremendous amount of comfort in turning on your police procedural at the end of a hard day, that by the end of the 43.5 minutes, they'll have caught the bad guy by using their forensic skills.
Yeah.
That's satisfying. It's like McLuhan said about the newspaper. We get it. It's reading the newspaper is getting into the warm bath.
Yeah, that's like us. We're getting into our warm Zoom bath. Zoom dumb, D-U-M-B, and Zoom D-O-M. Zoom dumb. Clinton, you want to react to the Igor quote?
You know, yeah.
Clinton, you want to react to the
Whether or
Igor?
not, yeah. I think sometimes people do take this proactive approach of running into the unknown as you know, it's sort of like you can let life happen to yourself and then always try to rebuild the comfort, or when you sort of take on this responsibility for controlling the sort of encounter that's going to be new to you by taking charge of the stream of the new. I'm not sure if I worded that just the best way, but stuff's going to be thrown in your face regardless. And so my seeking for the new is also a way for me to sort of get control over what that new is going to be, or rather than just coasting and letting circumstances fall apart and always being surprised by what the new thing is, right?
Yeah.
They're both still based on wanting the comfort. It's just, you know, the first level is I'm comfortable. Oh no, my life fell apart. Oh, I'm comfortable again. Oh no, my life fell apart. Versus, okay, I'm going to run into new stuff. I've decided what it is that you know is and is not going to be the next challenge. At least to some degree, I feel like I chose it as much as it chose me. It's just a basic desire for responsibility or control. I still would rather be comfortable, but
Yeah,
I'll settle for feeling like the new thing is one that I at least had a say in choosing.
Yeah, that was really good because it reminded me of they asked George Clinton, what kind of music do you like? He says, I like the kind of music that pisses me off because then I try to figure out why it's pissing me off. Now he can turn to all the music that he loves and play it and listen to it. And we know that's what music does. It you know, makes us feel good or makes us, you know, shake our booty and dance and live life. But he's like, well, why does that music I don't like? So he really is like using two words you brought up, challenge and risk. It's hard to be challenged and risk on your own. You have to do something. You can't just walk down the street and not. We're trying to avoid challenge and risk often. So Jay, can you do another 10 or how many? So we'll
Happy to. And you know, Clinton mentioned the word that jogged my memory is he mentioned responsibility, which I like a lot, and that was actually McLuhan's reason for why most people are neglectful of awareness of environment. He said it wasn't that they were afraid, although maybe it's indirectly fear, but he said it's that we wouldn't be able to bear the responsibility that goes hand in hand with awareness of the environment.
Really good. Yeah. So this one is about Auden. I wanted to start the session with a poem, but I guess we're just starting now at the 60-minute point. So I'm going to read from this book. The Medium is the Rear View Mirror. Donald Thiel's first book, Understanding McLuhan. And here's the poem. McLuhan put his telescope to his ear. What a lovely smell, he said, we have here. The Taste of Space by A.J.M. Smith. What a great poem. I'm going to read it again. McLuhan put his telescope to his ear. Oh, what a smell. Oh, what a lovely smell, he said, we have here. So much going on there because he's making a place. We have here. He's saying, I'm going to sense ratio shift this whole poem.
But he blew it because he made a value judgment.
You're busted, Marshall. You're busted, Marshall. And an experimental filmmaker from Belgium told me the other day, what's the best thing for a human being? And she said, poetry. And I was like, wow, what a great answer. Because I think Marshall would agree, poetry rates way up there. But this whole thing of sense ratio shifting and making a value judgment is, what is the function of poetry? I mean, we constantly pursue that. And what is the function of art? Because Auden, another poet, why I brought that up was his poetry was immense. He says, we don't know if art activates or pacifies us. Now, most people will say, no, art serves a good purpose. We should pursue it. Bertolt Brecht, the playwright, said, I'm for art that activates you, not that puts you in a trance. Well, that's a value judgment because you could find art that puts you in a trance. In the long run, it activates you and inspires you and makes you want to have more responsible action and be challenged and take risk. So how do you process this? Jay, we'll start with you. Does art activate or pacify, or should we even worry about it?
Yeah, I don't think we need to worry too much about this one.
Yeah.
Because the art itself is pretty nebulous, the definitions, especially now more than ever. And remember McLuhan said the Balinese have no word for art, right? So in some level, you could say doing everything to the best of your ability is art.
Yeah.
You can say there's a creative aspect to everything. So, I think it's better to be making art than talking about art.
That's a good thing. Now that could be a value judgment. Gerry, that was a shitty question. But no,
better than value judgment too. I mean, listen, I think Clinton already addressed this. We have to take this existence, and then of course there have to be some value judgments in there somewhere, or else or maybe there don't. I don't know. But as unenlightened human beings, we are forced, I think, to have some cherished opinions.
Yeah, I probably worded it wrong. Clinton, could you react to this idea? Art, the mystery of art, really, the essence of Auden was great. He says the mystery of art is that we don't know if it activates or pacifies us. How do you process that, Clinton?
It's funny because I assume he's meaning not the artist, right? Making art doesn't do that. It's the perceiver or the audience or the society who's being completed by the contribution by the artist, right? Um, um, I could just go on about specifically what I've read in the influences on McLuhan. Specifically, Wyndham Lewis complained in the 1920s that art was becoming a pastime for rich people who had too much time on their hands, and actual artists themselves would just become, would just well, those who didn't move into advertising could just go teach their methods to, some affluent person who had too much time on their hands, who wanted to fancy themselves an artist, right? So from that really judgmental, obviously value laden perspective, arts have been watered down to a mere form of self expression. And when Wyndham Lewis said that, you can think of it as derisive. Whether or not all the artists out there who consider what they do as self expression, or as, as much therapy as artistic production, that doesn't qualify as art the way that Wyndham Lewis would have saw it. But Wyndham Lewis was a total asshole, so you don't really need to it's good to appreciate that point of view without having to necessarily wed yourself to it, right? But that's definitely something that was an influence on early McLuhan. But once McLuhan sort of became the media dude by the 60s, he definitely mellowed out on that and just had this prescriptive idea of saying the artists should be telling us what our environment is made of. So he was sort of saying what art should be, and it should be in the form that challenges us and doesn't keep us asleep, or however it is that Auden put it. But yeah, that's what comes to mind based on the quote.
Yeah, that's great. And you made a radical value judgment on Wyndham Lewis, calling him an asshole. But I study assholism from day one, from Lenny Bruce, Frank Zappa, Wyndham Lewis, and all of them, and they definitely have services and disservices to their assholeism.
Yeah.
And
you have a BS in asshole on.
But my actual college degree from University of Michigan is BGS, Bachelor of General Studies, and I always say it's Bachelor of General Stuff. It's just stuff that I study. So we'll start with you.
I have one quick thing to add on the quote, because something occurred to me. Sometimes I've heard art referred to as just one human letting another human know what it was like to exist for them. In that sense, I think there can be something very pacifying when you meet with another being through a work of art and see a shared humanity. That can have a very pacifying effect. And I could also see it having a very, what's the A word he uses? Activating effect too.
Yeah.
I can see having that individual reach out to you through a work of art and having it really turn you on or activate you as well. So,
yeah.
Jay,
I should have brought up the third part of the quote with you. The mystery of art is we don't know if it activates or pacifies us. Most people want to think it activates us, and they know it could pacify us, and that could be good or bad. But the mystery is the key. And what you said really evoked Doug O. Smith, who I think is the greatest artist Venice, California ever created, and he's still going strong after 5 decades, living on the street his whole life. He said, art isn't, which to me is the artist is creating the anti-environment that McLuhan says. But if you say anti-environment to any sort of non-McLuhan expert, they don't get what you mean. They think, oh, you mean you want to hurt the trees? They think anti-environment. It's hard to explain the whole thing he means by environment in a couple words. So I love this, art isn't. But oh dear, where was I going to go then? Okay, so here's the Auden. We're slowly getting out of Auden. How can I know what I think until I hear what I say? So how do you process that, Jay? We'll start with you. So we know that McLuhan, basically E.M. Foster said it in the 20s, Auden said it in the 40s, and Marshall said it in the 60s. But Marshall's was, I don't know what I think until I say it. So it's funny, he takes this thing that happens in our brain and he uses the sense of verbal output. And then Auden had really said, I don't know what I think until I hear what I say. So it's pretty close. How do you process that, Jay?
The only thing that this one does for me is that it feels as though I speak faster than the speed of thought. I don't have to sit here and think about what I'm saying at this exact moment right now. It's just coming out of your mouth.
You're doing a good job, man. It's coming out good. That's what I was going to say.
Like that's the thing. There is not a in this. When you learn a language, you recognize that doesn't have to be this way. When I speak Spanish, it requires me very much more to think about what it is I want to get across and how I'm going to formulate that into language. You know, but our native language does seem to come out faster than the speed of thought, even though I know that's probably false.
Well, it might not.
It's perceived.
It feels that way, and it might not be, because Lakoff says, you know, we're operating whatever 80% subconsciously or
unconsciously, and Libet's experiments in neuroscience are still really interesting too. About, you know, the brain knows you're going to do something before you know. So
yeah. But before we go to Clinton on that one, let's just ask Jay for a second. When you get a script, they're telling you, here's what you have to say. But then you go, well, how much do I know from this director or this situation? I can vary that a little. I mean, that's sort of like the epitome of, like, me and Clinton are talking, and like you just said, it's just coming out of our mouths. We're not really thinking about it. But sometimes in your profession, you're giving it a script on what to say. Then how do you figure out how much you're going to stay to the script? I know it's a little off, but I'm just curious.
If out of respect for the writer, I try to begin word perfect, you know, unless there's something that I find egregiously unnatural, unsayable, that's out of character or something like that. And then you can have a discussion. Some people enjoy more improvisation than others. I've been on both sides of the spectrum, from complete improvisation to wanted the comma. They wanted the comma right where it was. You must pause here before you proceed to the second half of the sentence. So
yeah.
Again, that gets back into environment too. Each set is its own environment, and you sort of walk into it and figure out what will be gotten away with here and what will not.
Yeah. Good, because I'll lead you. Before you answer the Auden response, Clinton will ask you, are you improvising right now, Clinton?
Yeah, ultimately contemporaneous. I'm mostly listening, and then of course when you listen, some thought will come to mind, and you'll go, "Oh, I really hope I remember that by the time it's my turn to speak." But also, you got to get back to listening as fast as possible, right?
Yeah, that's like, can you multitask? Can you listen and think about your witty response too? So,
but
what do you think?
I'm not going to remember the exact wording how I thought it, or I don't even know that I thought of it, right? It's just, you know, sorry.
Yeah, no, don't be sorry, because I always set up meetings. Don't think, just let whatever comes to your mind first. And then they're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm not supposed to think. And so they're like, oh, I'm just supposed to blabble whatever I want. And one time I was lecturing to these art students, I'd say, when I get to you, just say whatever comes to your head. Say zucchini if you want. So I go around the room and everybody's answering, and I got to this one guy and he goes, zucchini. Okay.
Actually, this makes me think. Getting back, if we can get back to the global village role-playing thing, right? This performative element to being post Sputnik that I guess we were trying to elaborate if the whole world is literally becoming a theater and people are buying costumes and props so as to go around and LARP, as all the kids say on the internet now, right? You're not speaking extemporaneously, right? You're trying to fit the scene of your own movie in a social sense. Jay, when you said you're in your own movie, you're in your own car trying to get to someplace, and that's not a social situation unless you're cutting people off, I suppose, and flipping them the finger while you're doing it, right? But this whole party scene, conversely, right? If you were to open your mouth and just speak off the cuff and really surrender any self-awareness and speak faster than you can think, you're going to reveal your real character. And I think lots of times people are insecure about their real character. They know that, right? They've got lingering, unarticulated doubts, which might very well, maybe they really are jerks, right? And maybe if they started shouting off their opinion, everyone actually would hate them. And so they're kind of stuck in this, unable to take being confronted as they are and say, like, some people deserve a punch in the face. Are they going to learn their lesson from it? And if you never get that punch in the face, because you have the ESP, you know damn well that you're going to get it if you ever did surrender to being a social person and being who you were, right? You're not going to learn your lesson, right? So maybe part of role playing nowadays is people knowing how to fake being socially acceptable or knowing the right talking points or the right opinions to have to get by the social situations, and that's their role playing. But then they don't surrender to the extemporaneous expression of what they think is or of just what their actual opinion is, right? And so being authentic would not in the short term serve them well, but needs to be gotten through as a stage of development. I don't know. That's something I think that just popped, like sort of came into my head in the last while you guys were talking.
No, that was good. And Jay, do you want to say anything in that regard?
I just think I think I see a lot of veracity in it. From the very earliest times, there was a tremendous amount of concern socially what others thought of you. That a lot of people believe maybe that may be the reason for the large whites of our eyes may have evolved to make our expressions easier to read at a distance. Eye gazing, we talk about a lot, was something that mattered a tremendous amount. From a time when to be ostracized would have meant certain death. There does seem to perhaps be some hardwiring for caring about what others think of, and I don't see any reason why that would be lessened by the idea that all eyes are on us now from outer space, from Sputnik, from everyone's Insta account to whatever you want to put it. Everyone's watching you all the time.
Yeah, that's really good.
How would that lessen your sense of general anxiety of missing?
Yeah.
Well, this has been highly enlightening, gentlemen. I think we can close out with a couple little things. And bringing up the word fake was astute of you, Clinton, because I loved when Eric McLuhan taught us that fake is based out of the Latin word etymologically to make. And fact is based out of etymologically the Latin word to make. So Marshall made this big distinction between making and matching. And this is something we can pursue in the McLuhan mashup #3, maybe, that we can do in the upcoming future. In the future ain't what it used to be, but it sure has been a joy and a pleasure. I'll end with this question because we started dedicating this little get together with how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And I'll start with you, Clinton. How do you get to a McLuhan mashup?
You wait for the link.
Okay, Jay, how do you get to a McLuhan mashup?
Go to bed.
Go to bed. Well, we're all sleeping awake and we're dreaming awake. It It sure has been fun. And if either of you want to give a final benediction of any sort, I'm more than willing to hear it out.
Listen.
Strive diligently.
Okay, I'll leave with this. Let us pry.
I really enjoyed this, guys. Thanks for being there.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Clinton. Thank you, Jay.
That was great. Gerry, that guy's wide awake now. He'd never been to anything like this before.
No, we got a whole, just me and him. I interviewed him for 90 minutes. That's online.
Oh, Clinton?
I've interviewed him
Oh,
for
you
90
have.
minutes.
I got a feeling.
I did the first McLuhan mashup with him, and Andrew Crystal, one of the greatest McLuhanites in the world,
Yeah.
said, Gerry, that was great.
No, that guy is great. And this,
Jay.
the three of you,
Oh,
Jay
Jay
and
is
him.
great too.
I just, I just want to compliment.
Yeah,
Jay.
guess what? I don't have to do anything. I just sort of ring them in,
Right, because I mean, they're really sharp.
Yeah, and they play off each other perfect because Jay's got the See, the great thing about Clinton is